¿Qué tal, familia? ¿Cómo están? Buenas noches, bienvenidos, bienvenidas aquí a su casa. Estamos en la Ciudad de México. Vamos a hablar con Leo Severino. Lo van a poder escuchar, no lo van a poder ver. Nos va a presentar Going Deeper en inglés. Espero que les guste. Seguimos hablando de las virtudes. A ver, vamos a ver si aquí funciona, porque esto para acá. Creo que ahí estamos. Frater, buenas noches, Frater, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien, gracias a Dios.
Gracias, bienvenidos, bienvenidas a Going Deeper. Estamos con Leo Severino, productor de cine, guionista, filósofo, teólogo. Por favor, saluda a la gente de YouTube, mi familia de YouTube, Frater.
Saludos a todos en YouTube, gracias por estar con nosotros.
¿De qué nos vas a hablar hoy, Frater?
De la justicia, la virtud de justicia.
Ándale, eso se va a poner bueno, ¿eh?
Ojalá.
Eso se va a poner bueno, la justicia.
Ajá.
Ahí viene la justicia con Leo Severino, cuidado, ¿eh? Ahí viene. Cuidado. Aguas con los batazos aquí, ¿eh? Por favor. No queremos violencia, no queremos violencia con nadie. Aquí se promueve la paz y el amor. Así es que, Frater, no queremos violencia, ¿eh?
Sí, ok, tranquilo, porque pues, si es justo, entonces sí va a venir la violencia.
Porque ahí como ven a Leo es violento, ¿eh? Es violento.
¿Cómo?
Es broma. Bueno, estamos en vivo, estamos vivos, estamos en vivo. Paz y bien, pásenla bien, la vamos a pasar muy bien. Esa es la esperanza de hoy.
¿Cuándo voy a llegar a tener la facilidad en español para hacer esto en español?
Muy pronto, Frater. Tú lo que te propones lo logras y eres una persona que aprendes muy rápido. Si te lo propones, vas a andar así suelto. ¿Qué tal, amigos? Soy Leo Severino. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas a mi programa Going Deeper. ¿Cómo están? ¿Cómo la están pasando?
¿Cómo se llamaría? Lo profundo, lo más profundo.
Vámonos a lo profundo.
A lo profundo. Me gusta.
Sin miedo, ¿no? Vamos a, ¿te acuerdas cuando hablaba, perdón, esta alergia tremenda, cuando hablábamos de vamos a despeluzar todo, ¿no?
Sí.
Vamos a despeluzar cualquier decisión que vayamos a ver, antes de tomar una decisión, vamos a despeluzar, a desmenuzar, para irnos a lo profundo, a la raíz, y tomar la decisión basándonos en lo que es correcto y a la virtud en medio, ¿no?
Exactamente. Pensando y tomando esto, ¿estás tomando 5 segundos, Frater, o no?
Hasta 10 segundos, Frater, a veces.
¿Ah, sí?
Imagínate cómo...
Oye... Llegué como a 3. En el promedio fue como 3 segundos.
Imagínate cómo están las cosas que para que me tome 10 segundos. Respira y cuenta hasta 10, ¿no?
Sería bueno, ¿eh?
Pero eso fue un muy buen consejo de ayer. Empezar con nada más la idea de pensar en que tienes que esperar ya es un paso gigantesco. ¿Estás de acuerdo? 1 segundo, 2 segundos, 10 segundos, eso ya es, cada quien lo va a ir desarrollando a su ritmo, pero ya nada más pensar que antes de responder a una situación donde estás caliente y el tomato, ¿cómo era el
tomato meter?
Tomato meter.
Rojo, sí.
Estás hasta rojo de coraje porque alguien te contestó mal, te ofendieron, te escribieron un mail, un WhatsApp, un mensaje y te pegaron en tu ego, y estás a punto de mandar un misil. El puro hecho de decir, a ver, tranquilo. Me voy a tomar mi tiempo, ya ganaste. Ya eso es una gracia increíble, ¿no? Y eso es lo que queremos lograr con todos antes de responder. Cuando estás enojado, tómate tu tiempo.
Vamos a ver que la gracia viene por nuestra alma. Uh-huh. Nuestra alma es nuestro intelecto y nuestra, ¿cómo se dice? Will, albedrío.
No, will, voluntad.
En nuestro intelecto, nuestra voluntad. Y ahí son ante la gracia. Así que cuando ya estamos usando, aunque sea por un poquito, nuestra razón, nuestra capacidad de razón, todo se calma naturalmente, todo se calma y se ve la cosa más clara. Aunque sea por un poquito, mejor que nada.
No, ya, así es como se logra, poco a poco. Estamos, para eso es la vida y para eso es el tiempo. Hay que utilizarlo para crecer internamente hablando y que te conviertas en una mujer, en un hombre virtuoso. Esa es la idea, ¿no? Bueno, let's go, Frater, to the point. So today is going to be amazing, and I hope you like it.
Sí.
Open your heart, open your mind, and let's receive what Leo has to share with us tonight.
Let's go, and sorry to the Spanish-only speakers, because when I'm getting deep in this, I have to be able to think clearly, and unfortunately, that only happens to me in English. So here we go. We've gone from the lower faculties and talking about temperance in the concupiscible appetite, fortitude in the irascible appetite. We went up to the intellect last time. We talked about prudence in the intellect. Now we're finally at the will. And the will is where the rubber hits the road. One of my favorite definitions of what it means to believe is a readiness to act. In other words, people might say they believe, but I'll really know if you believe if you do the thing. Mm-hmm. For example, I believe my car is parked outside. And how do you know that belief is true? If I need to go drive it, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go outside to where I believe the car is, right? There's a great story of a trapeze artist. It was a tightrope walker. They put a tightrope across Niagara Falls. And he was going to be the first person to go across it. I think he was a Frenchman. Maybe he's French-Canadian. But anyway, he gets up there and he's like, people, do you guys believe I can do this? And they're like, yeah, we believe you can do it. He was hyping up the crowd on one side. Do you really believe I can do it? Yes. Do you believe I can go across the tightrope, across Niagara Falls, holding, juggling? Yeah, we believe you can do it. Everyone's going crazy. Do you believe I can do it pushing a wheelbarrow? Yes, we believe you can do it. Do you believe I can do it pushing a wheelbarrow with someone inside the wheelbarrow? Yeah, we believe you can do it. Do I have any volunteers?
Zero, Manny.
Right?
Zero.
We'll know the belief by the actions, right? So a lot of this stuff, if it just sits in our intellect, if it just resides there, that's not enough, right? Our dignity isn't just in thinking. It's in thinking and doing. It's in the knowing and the loving. It's the intellect and the will. Our being made in the image and likeness of God is both of those faculties and in our ability to cause. And this is where our purpose resides. It's not just in sitting back and thinking and talking about this stuff. As awesome and fulfilling as that is for some of us, especially some of us that are so disposed to this, that I just found a book that was printed in 1904, and I was so excited because I was like, wow, this is, some of the stuff on moral theology that I hadn't seen before. That's all well and good. I can read books from from 100 years ago and have all that knowledge in my head. But if it doesn't equate to action, to sanctification, really to what we're talking about is holiness, if it doesn't equate to that, then it's worthless. In fact, it's less than worthless.
Even worse.
It's worse because I'm going to be held responsible for what I know. Mm-hmm. This knowledge is given, not for the sake of just sitting in our heads, but to actually flow through us to cause, so that we have that dignity of causation, which is our purpose, right? Well, the virtue that moderates our disinclination and our will, our inclination towards evil, towards wrong, is the virtue of justice. The virtue of justice is defined simply as rendering each person their due. Now, we think of justice as like courtrooms or maybe what is just and unjust in our behavior. But we don't think of it as the virtue that moderates the entirety of our will. But it is so broad that it actually does. Because if we are giving each person their due, then guess what? We're giving ourselves our due, which has to do with our purpose. We're giving our neighbor our due, which has to do with all of our interactions. We're even giving God his due. And that's where I'm going to start. We're going to talk about 3 virtues of justice. There's a whole bunch of them. We'll see it. You see it in that virtues tree that I sent, that Eduardo posted. There's, rectitude and obedience and all kinds of other ones that are in there, right? We're going to talk about 3.
Uy.
It's a shock to people.
I don't know what happened.
Did you get me? Am I still there?
Yeah, 1 second. Let me 1 second, Fabi.
Yeah.
Okay, are you there?
Just comments.
Okay.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Somebody called and I had to turn it off, the notifications.
So, are we all good? Can everyone hear me now, please? Just yes if you can hear me. You can hear me a lot? Let's see the comments. Folks, can you hear me?
I think it's a little delayed. It's good now. Okay, we're good for that. Let's go.
Carla, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so this might come as a shock because people think of religion as simply a matter of subjective taste. It's not. It's actually a virtue commanded by our very design. Why? Because we already proved that God exists, and we already proved that our purpose is tied to God, and the virtue whereby we give God his due is just titled the virtue of religion. So what we mean by religion is the things that are necessary for us to give God his due. And as you can imagine, they are measured both by our internal stuff, our intellect, our will, and our external behavior. Internally, the virtue of religion just literally means that we have an obligation in justice to give God what he has created us for. He has rights over us. Why? Because remember what authority was. It's the ability to determine the means to the end. Well, he determined the means by giving us our intellect and our will and our bodies to the end, which is our purpose. So he has that authority because of his creation and holding us in existence. So he has rights. We, relative to God, have duties. Those rights, because they're established by God, have to be objective. Because they're based in our nature, has to be applicable to everybody, which means everybody has the duty of religion. Now, if we think about that, what it really means is this. We have to use our intellects and our wills and our bodies, the entirety of our being, to glorify God. We have to do this. The natural law, the law of our very nature, of our design, commands this. And we can discern actually 4 different aspects, 4 proper acts of religion that should be true for everybody. The first proper act is lifting our mind to God. What's the definition of that, Prophet, of elevating our minds to God? What's that called? When you take your mind and you elevate it, you think about godly things.
Meditation, contemplation.
That's right. Meditation and contemplation are forms of mental prayer. Prayer is the proper act, is the first proper act of religion. In other words, in order to have religion, we have to pray. We have to raise our mind, our intellects to God.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't pray, then we're not in touch with God. So we're going to go deeper into an entire session as to what prayer is, how it works, et cetera. But we have to know that if it's justice, that might mean that it's quantifiable. So some part of our time every day should be dedicated to communicating with God. We know that God is in our thoughts. If we are in our thoughts, that means they exist. We know if they exist, they can't exist on their own, which means the God who caused them has to be holding them in existence. We know that the God who caused them also thinks and knows everything because of the omniscience that we proved, which means that if you want to put something into the mind of God, just think, and it's there. And that recognition in prayer, either of gratitude or of petition or of whatever, worship, all those things are proper parts of prayer that we should be doing on a daily basis if we're going to fulfill our requirements of justice to God. In fact, we're going to see that if we're going to fulfill above the requirements of justice, we should be praying often. So, prayer. Second, sacrifice. Prayer is in the intellect. Sacrifice is in the will. Why sacrifice? Because of our fallen nature, our will is disinclined from the good. So we have to incline our will to the good, which requires a sacrifice. Sacrifice has been recognized by almost every single religion as a proper form of prayer. I'm sorry, as a proper act of religion, also as a proper form of prayer, right? But it's that inclination of our will, of the giving of our time, of our treasure, of our goods, of our will for godly things. Third,
mortify.
That's right. Third, adoration. Adoration is part of, someone just said fasting. Yes, fasting would be, and Eduardo, mortification, those would be part of sacrificing good things, like this perfectly good meal for the sake of a godly end and to grow in the virtue of mortifying our bodies, of tuning our bodies so that they're more in line with their purpose. Third, adoration. Adoration has to do with who God is himself. And because he is our authority, it's given him proper honor. It's an external or internal manifestation to God alone of something that is proper to him alone. It's moderating those externals to be subjugated to God. That's what adoration is. This is why many cultures kneel in adoration, because they show this subjugation, this subordination to God himself. And then finally, the fourth is normally called almsgiving. It's also called charity. It's also called beneficence. What it is given to others who are an image and likeness of God for the sake of God. For as we give to others, we also give to the God who is their authority and holds them in existence for the sake of a good. So religion should have those four things: prayer, sacrifice, adoration, almsgiving. We're going to talk about these at length, right? But the point here is that part of justice is to give God his due, because justice is giving each person their due. And in order to do that, we actually have to objectively practice a religion. And what this means is this: it's not just a personal thing. It's not just, I'm going to God is the one who determines how worship is to be given to him. And so we can know those things that we can know by our reason. And then even more, as we saw in the book of Genesis, if God actually reveals himself, then it's a greater source of the manifestation of his authority. Okay, moving on from the virtue of religion, we're going to move to the virtue of truthfulness, of honesty. This is a big one, and it's one that we often sadly fall into. Whereas religion is giving God his due, truthfulness or honesty is given, veracity is giving our neighbor their due, not in deeds, but in speech. This is a big one because of the nature of belief itself. Our beliefs, the way that our intellect sends judgment to the will, and the way that the will acts, is based on what the intellect presents to them. Now, if the intellect is doing its job, it's going to recognize the truth. The problem with lying is the will then overrides the truth that the intellect knows, and it goes contrary to the nature of the intellect. And we know that going contrary to the nature of a thing, like the elbow example we always use, to go contrary to its design, is to do violence to it. Every lie does violence to our intellect, because our intellect grasps the truth, but then the will judges to ignore that truth, and then we actually manifest something that is contrary to what we know to be true in our words. And this is a massive, massive problem, right? It's because the very nature of our intellect is to adequate our thoughts with reality. There's actually three fonts of truth that we can discern just by our intellect. First is truth as it has to exist in God himself. God being the author of all things, God must know some truths that we do not know. It's never going to contradict the truth that we know, otherwise our knowledge is meaningless, but it's always going to be greater than what our knowledge is. So it's knowledge in the mind of God. Second, knowledge in our own minds. In other words, intellectual truth, truth as it is in the intellect. Third, truth as it is in reality, in those things external to us. Truth as it is based on the stuff that we see and that we hear and that we touch and that we smell, that we think of, right? So these three actually are one. Why? Because the truth of God is embedded into the truth of created things, and that truth is known by our intellect. When we say something that is false, we're falsifying, we're trying to use our ability to cause to falsify reality itself, as if we take the place of God to cause the lack of the intelligence that is embedded in the thing as expressed by our thoughts or by our will, even though our thoughts know contrary. In other words, the sin, the fault, the vice of dishonesty is massive. It is us literally trying to falsify reality by our own problems. Now, I know we've all fallen into this, right? This isn't about culpability. It is about knowledge so that we can recognize this, take it for the seriousness that it is. Now, it doesn't mean that all lies are the same, obviously, right? One lie that destroys somebody's reputation and does massive damage is different than, what you have for lunch and you say something, that's a little off or a little exaggeration. Obviously, by way of degree, they're bad, but by way of category, it's nonetheless a falsification, right? Our intellect is meant to conform, to adhere, to adjust to reality itself. Reality determines the image, but in lying, it is us. We become the standard. We determine, or at least attempt to determine, by our words, what the real, simple truth tells us is false. Right? So either the mind conforms to reality or it doesn't. There is no degrees. There is no means. There's no middle between truth and falsehood. Right? So then why is honesty a virtue? A virtue is the means. Because the virtue is always speaking the truth when required. Does the virtue mean we say every single thing that we know to be true? No. There's some things that we have no duty to say, right? There's some things that are private, that are obviously by their very design and nature to be kept strict and confidential. If we made a promise not to say something, or if it's something that's obviously intimate, those sorts of things. So saying too much of the truth is where the vice lies. Saying too little is where the lying resides, right? So the point is this. Truthfulness, honesty, is the virtue whereby our will adheres to the truth as it is in the intellect. Our speech, by its design, it's meant to convey what the mind sees as true. It's meant to grasp that truth and speak it in order to convey that truth, which means our own nature, has a right by its nature for our speech to be truthful. Those that we're speaking to have the right by the nature of their very ears and their intellect and its design to hear the truth from us. Everything else is evil. A wise man who's greater than a man once said, everything else is of the devil, right? So it's an incredibly important virtue. And we know this because in our own lives, the weight of one little lie has so many ripple effects, right? It could be like, I remember being in high school and my parent, I was going out, I was sneaking out. I mean, I'm confessing here to the world, but I'm sorry to do it. Hopefully it's a good example, right? But I was sneaking out, but I didn't want my parents to know that I was going to go see my girlfriend. And then I didn't want her to know that I was telling my parents because she was an upright girl and all this sort of stuff. And I just remember the pressure of who did I tell? What did I tell my brother? Who did I tell? This one in particular comes to mind. And it was just this tangled web we weave, right? As the poet said. When first we practice to deceive, it's this web of stuff, of falsehood, of disreality, of unreality. I don't know what the proper word is there, but that then becomes this weight upon us. And that's just interiorly. What about the effects? What if my little lie said to this person causes them to rely on this thing that then they say to the other person, and it causes this whole entanglement of things, right? So how do we practice the virtue of honesty? Well, it goes back to prudence, right? Because it starts in the intellect. And it goes back to what Eduardo and I were talking about in the beginning, and that is deliberateness. It starts with, normally lies are rooted in some sort of bad association, right? If I say this, there's going to be some crazy consequence, or some sort of emotion, fear, anger, whatever, the lower faculties are moving us towards, that makes us think that the lie will be better than the truth. We know that that is not true. We know that the lie by its nature is not better than the truth. Truth and goodness is where goodness resides. And so we know intuitively that it's not. And yet something has deceived us either internally or externally. How are we going to get out of that? By taking that pause and deliberating. Right? So how do we grow in it? Deliberation, meditation. By the way, justice is an integral virtue. All these virtues connect. If we're growing in the virtue of religion, this is why, for example, the 8th commandment is to not bear false witness, right? It's to not lie. These things are tied together. The more we should grow in the virtue of justice, in the virtue of religion, the more we should grow in the virtue of honesty, right? Finally, for tonight, it's the virtue of gratitude. Now, how is gratitude part of justice? If justice is giving each person their due, how is gratitude part of that justice? What do you think, Eduardo? How's gratitude? How's that part of justice? You have a thought on that?
Well, I mean, it starts by we're grateful for our own existence.
Exactly right.
And then starting from there, because I'm so grateful that for my life and for every single lesson that I have received from God, when I see someone else, you have to manifest that, to everyone around you.
Yes. Exactly right. Right. Gratitude is the virtue whereby we recognize what we are actually due. It's introspective. Justice is about giving each person their due. Well, the question is this: what do we actually do? Are we due our lives? Did I have a right to be created?
No, it's a gift.
No, right? It's a complete gift. I wasn't around to have a right to demand that I be created. It's circular.
Can you imagine? God, you need to create me tomorrow. That's my right.
Exactly right? Or I have some claim to my life.
That's why life is a gift. And that's why you gratitude has to start. That's the roots of being grateful with everyone, and precisely because of that, that's why you and I and many here, not only we appreciate life, but we defend life.
Amen.
Every life matters from the beginning until the end.
That's exactly right, brother. Exactly right. And that's part of gratitude. It's that recognition that life itself is a gift. It's an unconditional gift from an unconditional creator, an uncaused creator, nonetheless created. It wasn't because there was any compulsion. It wasn't because anyone had some right and he had some obligation. No, it was a complete gift, and we are not due it. We act as if this is my time. Did I create time? No. How dare you waste my time? Oh, it's my time. I created it. How dare you interfere with my life? It's my life, as in I have some sort of claim and right to it from ex nihilo, from nothing, that it should have been. No, this is a gift. This is an unconditional gift. Every single good thing is that way, right? In fact, what are we due in this life? What are we due? Right? The humble person might say, you know what? Our life is a gift. We're due nothing. We're not due anything. We don't have a right to things. I don't mean in the sense of if I pay $10 for a meal, I shouldn't get the meal. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about interiorly, introspectively, relative to our very nature, relative to the existence of all things. What am I due? Now, like I said, the humble person might say, well, I'm not due anything. Whatever comes, comes from God, and whether it's good or bad, from my perspective, blessed be God. And that would be very wise. But I'm going to go a little further. I'm going to go a little deeper, as the book is called. What are we doing justice? Well, any good we do, we know ultimately starts from and is ordered to God. God is the source of all goodness, and God is the end to which our goodness points. The proximate, the immediate good is whatever good thing we might do. The end good, the ultimate good, the final good is God. So God is the root and the end of everything good, right? So anything good we do ultimately is rooted and first caused by God, right? So we're not due the good things that we do. There is one thing, however, that we do on our own entirely apart from God. There is one area where we decide, you know what? God has no role here. I'm completely on my own. And whatever I get, I'm going to deserve 100% of myself. It's not God causing this or being the end cause of this or being the efficient cause or the final cause. This is entirely on what's the one thing that we have that we can claim to be entirely our own?
Your will.
Yes, but is it our will when we're doing good things? The answer is no. When we're doing good things, we're just conforming to God.
Mm-hmm.
What about when we commit evil? Is God in that evil?
Mm-mm.
No. It's the dignity of causation. It's the dignity of having our purpose. The one area that we can call our own, that we can say God is not a part of, is sin. That's what we're due. The wages of sin. The one thing that we can claim, we have a right to, if you will, in the twisted, interpreted sense of the word right, is when our own wills goes against God. That is no longer God working through us and being the final end of the thing. That is us on our own, right? So it's not that we're due nothing. We're actually due whatever the punishment for our sin is. That's what we're due. We are due because every single sin ultimately is a sin against an eternal God whose purpose he embedded in us by our very nature that we rebel against. So what do? Whatever our sin is due, whatever the sin against an infinite God is due, right? Maybe it's eternal punishment. Maybe that's what we're due. But here's the good news, because this is all about gratitude, is we can swap that eternal punishment or that temporal punishment, that temporal bad thing, for the exact opposite, for grace and goodness and eternal reward. This is why we should have gratitude. We should have gratitude not only for our lives, we should have gratitude for the ability to fulfill our purpose. We should have gratitude for all things. Why all things? Because here's what gratitude does. Gratitude is, I haven't even defined the thing. It's the virtue whereby we recognize, appreciate, and rest in the good of all things. We're ordered towards truth and goodness. We talked about anger and fear and how the way to get out of it is to separate ourselves from the image and then to reformulate the image from the bad, from the negative, to the good. Gratitude is us resting in the good. It's seeing in whatever happens some good and not clamoring around for something else. The person who lacks gratitude is a person who just wants one thing and then wants another thing and then wants another thing and wants another thing. They're not happy with what they have. The grateful person is not angry. Why does gratitude kill anger? Because anger is looking at the sorrow, at the negative, not focusing on the good. The grateful person is not indignant. They know we're not due anything in this world. In fact, we might be due the wages of our sin is what we're due. And yet, we have the possibility for goodness and happiness and pleasure and grace and salvation. The gratitude helps kill pride. Why? Because our inflamed ego is the thing that might want to focus on the negative, on the slight, on the indignation. But the opposite is true with gratitude. We see whatever is bad. The email example we talked about Eduardo and I yesterday of somebody sent us an email and it offended us and offended our mother and whatever else. It's that moment of there's a good here. Imagine saying, wow, thank you for this. Because of this little email, I was able to grow in humility or patience or longanimity or meekness or joy or peace or whatever else, right? It was St. Augustine who said, the sins of my past, they're my greatest friends, right? They became his greatest friends because he
has them here all the time. It's a reminder from where God pulled him out from.
Exactly right. Gratitude is that way. Gratitude is the way whereby our focus is the good and we act gratefully. If we are grateful, if we have gratitude for all things, guess what? We're going to have peace. Peace is the tranquility of order. Order is rooted in truth and goodness. When something is not true, there's a disorder there. When someone says 2 + 2 is 7, we don't recognize it as order. It's not peaceful. But then you say 2 + 2 is 4, it can calm. When we're lying, right, there's that web of, when we say the truth, even if there's a consequence, there's at least a certain peace that we get intrinsically. That's what gratitude gives us. Gratitude is that recognition of the good in all times, and it's that resting in it. Gratitude is the way that our will start bending from malice, which is ordering towards the bad, towards the evil, to justice, which is ordering towards the good. Right?
Hay un dicho en español que va así, no sé en inglés si tenga sentido, seguramente, pero no sé cómo se dice. Es de bien nacidos ser agradecidos.
Es de bien nacidos. ¿Qué significa bendecido?
It's someone. Does anybody here knows how to say that in English? Es de bien nacidos ser agradecidos.
Bien nacidos.
Bien nacidos is when you were born right, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know that expression. Expression means.
Bien nacidos.
Bien nacidos ser agradecidos. It's like a. I don't know how to put it together. Maybe someone knows and somebody will write it here. But
that sounds awesome. If I knew what the colloquialism of bien nacidos.
Es como coloquial. Es un dicho coloquial. Es de bien nacidos ser agradecidos, which it applies to what you're saying. You know, a good person should be always grateful. You know.
That's exactly right. Okay, so how do we grow in justice? We grow in the virtues of religion, of honesty, of gratitude, and just like these, study that virtue tree. Take a look. If you have any questions, you can DM me, and I'll take some questions now. But that's tonight's session. I think we talked. Thank you guys for your nice comments, Mr. Blitzy. You're very welcome. Thanks for the nice comment there. Do we have questions or thoughts, guys? It is well born to be grateful. That's nice. Yes. Is well born to be grateful, right? So
ahí está. Gracias.
Yeah, it's the well born meaning it's the you're of good stock when you're grateful, right?
Es de bien nacidos ser agradecidos.
Es de gente buena inteligente ser agradecido.
También. Muy bien.
All right. Let's see. Any questions, guys, for tonight? Oh, someone says, "Where's Lucas?" I'm in New York again. I'm working. He's back home. Thank you, Claire, for your kind word.
Where's Lucas? Ya Lucas hizo famoso, ¿no?
Right.
Where's Lucas?
Where's Lucas? That's funny. Guys, no questions. That's great. This is from Lisette here. ¿Qué tengo que hacer para estar sincronizada? Do you want to translate sincronizada? Does that make sense?
¿En qué sentido? ¿En relación a qué o qué?
No sé. Dinos más. No sabemos qué exactamente significa ser sincronizado. How do you stay grateful when you're in chronic pain? Okay, so listen. Norma, great question. The virtues are difficult, right? We're not saying that this is easy. What we're saying is that it is worth it, right? So let's say we're in chronic pain. Chronic pain, by its nature, seems to be opposed to gratitude, because the pain itself is the very thing that demands our attention. It focuses on the negative. It tells us that something is not wrong, right? But if it's pain of the body, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's pain of the soul. We use the example early on when we were talking about the problem of pain of the story of a lady who had a stomach cancer, and in that stomach cancer, she changed her life. The pain caused her to recollect and realize how ungrateful she was and how terrible she treated her friends and neighbors and whatnot. And she wound up thanking that pain, because it was in that pain that she started questioning her own mortality and questioning her behavior about people, because she was faced with this tragic thing. So just recall, listen, ¿cómo se dice en español de sudar camisas ajenas? Right?
Sudar.
Es un dicho colombiano, creo.
No, eso no lo conozco.
Bien.
Pero también está la oportunidad de, lo vas a hablar en otra ocasión, de los diferentes niveles de oración, pero está la oración de los sentidos. La oración de los sentidos, que es ofrecer ese dolor que tenemos, que en algún momento todos vamos a pasar por algún dolor, unos más, unos menos, pero el dolor físico y dolor también en el corazón, ¿no? Y ese dolor puede uno convertirlo en oración. Eso es lo que quise decir. Convertir el dolor en oración es la oración de los sentidos, y esa oración es muy, muy poderosa.
Yep. Should I translate to English on that?
Oh, I thought I was talking in English. Okay. Sorry. I'm confused now, English and Spanish. Spanglish.
I love it. So this is for Norma. Listen, first is, if you are in that pain, I'm very sorry. These words aren't meant to address that, right? You're here as an armchair theologian saying, just be grateful. And that's not the intent at all. I wish I could somehow, my words can take away and ease some of that pain. And we should not wish that or want that on anybody. Nonetheless, the very nature of it is such that it's there for a reason, and it's there for a reason that is ultimately ordered towards the good. And what Eduardo was saying is sometimes the prayers of those sufferings, right, that pain itself, when it's offered for something good, repentance for our own failings, to help alleviate the suffering of others, can be an insanely powerful tool. So it's a longer conversation, but it's a very good question. Let's see other question.
Algo que a mí, por ejemplo, me tranquiliza siempre en momentos dolorosos o momentos de angustia o momentos de frustración o momentos donde todo está nublado. Una frase que a mí siempre me da me calma en 2 segundos. Obviamente esa frase la tienes que ver con ojos de fe. Es: Dios permite todo lo que pasa para el bien de todos aquellos que lo aman. Y cuando es todo lo que pasa, es todo lo que pasa para el bien de todos aquellos que lo aman. Entonces, en el momento que me pasa algo que no entiendo, me voy a esa frase: Dios me ama, sí, permitió esto, sí, es para mi bien. Ok, ¿dónde le tengo que sacar provecho a esto?
So, Mas Vida 10 said this: should we be grateful for the coronavirus pandemic? No, the very nature of the pandemic is not the object of the gratitude. The gratitude, and thank you for that question, because it makes sense. You're not grateful for the evil. You're not grateful for the objectively bad things. You're not grateful for the pain in and of itself. You look past it for some good that we could be grateful for. So there's 2 ways. Here's another example. There was 100 people that were sent to a hotel. The hotel was in really, really bad condition. 50 of them were sent thinking that they were going to jail, right? 50 of them were sent thinking that they had won a free vacation. The hotel was in really bad shape. The food wasn't great, and et cetera, et cetera. The 50 who thought this was jail thought this is amazing. This is the best jail ever. The 50 who thought they were going on vacation thought this is the worst hotel. This is the worst thing ever. What was the difference? Their frame of mind relative to the thing. That's where the gratitude resides. It's in how do we see what is given. So we can look at the pandemic and see it for the terribleness it is, which we need to. That's the reality. We're not going to deny that it's terrible. But we can also see it as an opportunity for Eduardo to decide, hey, you know what, Leo? Why don't we start this thing? Since we're stuck at home and our schedules are stuck. It could be an opportunity for us to reflect, to introspect, to work on the virtues, to work out, to get closer to home, to be close to our family, et cetera, et cetera. So you're not grateful for the thing itself. You're grateful for the good that can get through this evil. Hopefully that makes sense. You want to add to that, brother?
No, I think this is it.
All right, let's go one more. Let's see.
But at the same time, Frater, I don't know if it makes sense. You're not grateful for, thank God for the coronavirus, right? Like, in general. But individually, if something happens bad to you, it's between you and God to be grateful to whatever happens to you. When St. Francis of Assisi was dying of pain and he saw one of his brothers praying to God, please heal my brother, and he said, no, how dare you how dare you ask God to take this pain away from me when this pain is what is making me holier than before. So individually, the pain that he was receiving, he was thanking for that pain. So how can you explain that? For example, generally speaking, no, we shouldn't be thanking God for the coronavirus. Individually, if the coronavirus is making you a better person, you can say, well, thank you for this opportunity that you allow me to turn this bad into a good. Thanks. Something like that. I don't know if it makes sense.
That makes perfect sense, Doctor. And as usual, you just set up our next session. Literally, our next one is going to be uniformity with God's will. So we're going to talk about precisely that thing. All right?
Beautiful.
We'll do a whole session on that. All right, final question. It's from Mari. It's a good one. How can you manage when you're grateful all the time and people around you take it away? All right, here we go, Mari. It's going to be shocking. No one can take away your gratitude. Right? Gratitude, because it's a virtue, it's our responsibility. Our happiness, our joy is our responsibility. No one has the power to take away gratitude from you, right? Because no matter what they do, there is a good that can be achieved. Let's say someone sends a bad email, yells at us, does some injustice to us, right? In that moment, we can still, as Eduardo and I mentioned, respond in love, in forgiveness, in meekness, in tranquility, in patience, in tolerance, and all these virtues. Doesn't mean we roll over and we're unjust, or we allow an injustice necessarily. But it means is that part of what we're trying to say here is we have the control. We have the control of our own gratitude, of our own happiness, to such an extent that no one should be able to take it away. If someone else is taking it away from us, it just means we have a flawed perspective on our own dignity,
right,
and power people have over us.
And something very important, you're not grateful because you're expecting something from the other person. You're grateful just because that's a principle that should be in our nature. And God sees that. If the other person or people in front of you, they don't care how grateful you are, it doesn't matter.
That's right. We got to shift our mentality from blame, from fault, to responsibility, right? Might not be our fault that X or Y happened, and yet it's still our responsibility to find the good in it and to grow out of it towards the good. I have one final comment that I think is worth repeating. It's from Carla. She said the same thing happened with her father. He had bone cancer. He changed completely for the good. It was a blessing for all of us.
Wow.
What an incredible way to end. Carla, thank you for that story. Sorry about your dad, but thank God that he found that goodness in that pain.
God bless your dad.
Example of gratitude. All right, folks. Good night.
Frater, like always, thank you so much, brother.
Around the same time. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow we'll talk about uniformity with God's will.
Which actually, that should be an amazing book that we recommend that you to get. What's exactly the title is Uniformity with God's Will, right, Frater?
Yes, you can look it online. It's called Uniformity with God's Will by St. Alphonsus.
It's an amazing book. Maybe some of you have it, and if you can read it before the session, I think it's going to be even better. But if you don't, after you hear the session tomorrow, you will be inspired to buy the book because it's amazing. Anyway, so thank you, everyone. Buenas noches a todos. Gracias por acompañarnos a Going Deeper con Leo Severino. Frater, buenas noches.
Just look online for Uniformity with God's Will. Hasta mañana.
Chao, Frater. Buenas noches. Gracias.
Bye, everybody.
Saludos a Kevin.
God bless. Okay. Listo, Frater. Bye.
Él fue Leo Severino, productor de cine, guionista, teólogo y filósofo. Mañana entre 9 y 9:30 de la noche, hora de la Ciudad de México, vamos a hablar de Uniformity with God's Will. Nos vemos mañana a la 1 de la tarde, hora de la Ciudad de México, en el Rosario por el Mundo. Los que quieran rezar el rosario, los que les guste rezar el rosario, están invitados, están invitadas. Y los que no, también están invitados, también están invitadas. Les mando un fuerte abrazo, familia, los quiero mucho como siempre. Buenas noches, Dios los bendiga, paz y bien y pásenla bien. Coman frutas y verduras y lávense las manos antes de comer. Listo, familia. Ánimo. 1 de la tarde, 13 de mayo. 1 de la tarde, hora de la Ciudad de México. 13 de mayo, Día de la Virgen de Fátima. Vamos a rezar el rosario por el mundo. Vamos a rezar el rosario por el mundo y esperamos 50,000 personas. Todos, de diferentes partes del mundo. Juntos, unidos en oración, en este movimiento de amor y en este movimiento de oración. Santo Rosario por el mundo. Por medio de YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, todas las redes en vivo. Así es que pasen la voz y ahí los espero. Ánimo. Dios los bendiga. Buenas noches.